We thought modern economies were built on growth, but we were wrong. They were built on people. People to work, people to consume, people to innovate, people to sustain the systems that make everything else possible. For the last century, advanced economies assumed one thing: there would always be more people tomorrow than today. More workers, more taxpayers, more families, more consumption. But that assumption is breaking, quietly, structurally, simultaneously across the developed world. The United States, Germany, Japan, South Korea, the United Kingdom. Different cultures, same trajectory. Nations are running out of workers. Not in some distant future, not in 2050. It's happening now. This is the story of what happens when the demographic engine of modern economies runs empty. Demographic decline doesn't feel like a crisis. It doesn't break suddenly. It erodes silently. Birth rates fall, retirements increase, migration slows, labor shortages intensify. Until one day, a country realizes it has more retirees than workers, more jobs than applicants, more demand than supply. At that point, the system isn't just stressed, it's structurally inverted. For decades, developed economies relied on a demographic pyramid. Lots of young people at the bottom, very few old people at the top. This structure made everything possible: tax revenue, pensions, healthcare stability, strong labor markets, and corporate growth. But every year, that pyramid flattens. More old, fewer young. This transforms the core of the economic machine because the modern economy has a hidden dependency. It needs a growing workforce to sustain itself. When that workforce freezes or shrinks, the entire model changes. So why are countries running out of workers? Three forces are converging. First, record low birth rates. Across Europe and the United States, birth rates have fallen far below the replacement level of 2.1 children per woman. Germany is at 1.5, the US at 1.6, Spain and Italy at a shocking 1.2, and South Korea is at 0.7, the lowest in human history. Once this downward trend begins, it's incredibly difficult to reverse. Second, a massive wave of retirements. The baby boomer generation, the largest workforce cohort in modern history, is now leaving jobs, drawing pensions, and increasing healthcare demand. In the US alone, 10,000 people retire every single day. Europe is seeing the exact same trend. The exit is happening much faster than replacement can occur. And third, structural labor mismatches. Economies evolve, but workforces don't always keep up. This creates shortages across critical sectors: medical care, manufacturing, logistics, construction, elder care, and education. Jobs stay open not because people are refusing them, but because there simply aren't enough people. The first symptom of this is that labor shortages become permanent. They used to be cyclical, tied to economic ups and downs. Now they're structural. Germany has nearly 2 million unfilled jobs. France faces chronic shortages in healthcare and construction. The US is desperate for truckers, nurses, teachers, and electricians. Every sector reports the same pattern. We can't find workers, not just skilled workers. Workers, period. The second symptom: the economy can't scale. Growth relies on labor supply. When that supply thins out, companies invest less, projects slow down, infrastructure ages, and productivity stalls. Countries start running into physical limits, not financial or technological limits. Demographic limits. The third symptom is that the state gets more expensive. When you run out of workers, the dependency ratio flips. More people rely on the system than contribute to it. This puts immense pressure on pensions, healthcare, and social services. Governments try to compensate with higher taxes, more debt, and later retirement ages. But these are just temporary fixes. They don't solve the underlying issue: not enough workers. The United States is aging more slowly than Europe, but it's now on the same curve. Fertility is below replacement, retirement is rising, and immigration is slowing. Labor shortages are hitting healthcare, logistics, and construction especially hard. The US has a slight advantage with a younger demographic, but even that buffer is shrinking. Europe, on the other hand, is on the front line. Italy, Spain, Germany, Greece, Portugal all are experiencing population decline. This touches every single sector. Fewer engineers, fewer nurses, fewer teachers, fewer police officers. Demographic decline isn't an event, it's a direction. And for many European countries, that direction is downward. Why does all this matter? Because workers aren't just labor. They are taxpayers. They are consumers. They are innovators and community stabilizers. Without them, housing demand slows, retail contracts, governments lose revenue, and businesses stop expanding. The impact isn't localized, it's systemic. So, what happens long-term when a nation runs out of workers? For consequences appear. First, the economy gets slower. Without workforce growth, GDP cannot expand the way it once did. Modern capitalism depends on rising labor, rising consumption, and rising productivity. Demographic stagnation weakens all three. Second, inequality increases. Labor scarcity might push wages up in some sectors, but it pushes costs up everywhere. This amplifies housing inequality, regional inequality, and generational inequality. Those with capital thrive, while those without it struggle. Third, immigration becomes a structural necessity. This isn't about ideology or politics, it's pure mathematics. Countries without migration shrink. And shrinking countries lose their economic weight. Every advanced economy will eventually need more migrants, better integration, and smarter long-term planning. And fourth, the future becomes unbalanced. Too many retirees, too few workers, too few children. Societies tilt, and tilted systems are inherently unstable. The deeper truth is that decline happens slowly, then suddenly. A country doesn't collapse when its workforce shrinks. It collapses when that shrinking becomes irreversible. Japan is the early template. Fewer births, fewer marriages, fewer workers, more retirees, and falling economic dynamism. The world once saw Japan as an anomaly. Now, it looks more like a preview. This brings us to the core question. What happens when nations can no longer rely on demographic momentum? When the very foundation of the modern economic model no longer exists? Countries will have to redesign everything: pension systems, healthcare, taxation, work culture, immigration, and education. It's a full structural rewrite, born not of preference, but of pure necessity. Three forces will shape the coming decades. First, automation will be used as a replacement, not just an enhancement. Robotics and AI won't simply assist workers. They will substitute for missing workers in farms, factories, hospitals, and transportation. But automation has its limits, especially in jobs that require a human touch, like healthcare and elder care. Second, selective immigration will become strategic. Countries will compete fiercely for nurses, engineers, technicians, and caregivers. Migration will transform into a tool of national survival. But it's not just about numbers. Successful integration requires linguistic, cultural, and economic compatibility. When these align, immigration can stabilize shrinking populations. When they don't, it creates friction. Third, the economy will shift from growing to balancing. For the first time in centuries, success might mean stability instead of expansion, quality over scale, and resilience instead of speed. We are entering a new economic era, defined not by getting more, but by managing with less. Nations don't run out of workers overnight. They run out slowly through falling birth rates, rising retirements, and demographic inertia. The crisis isn't sudden, it's structural. Because while economic growth is optional, demographics are not. And the world is now entering a phase where its most advanced economies must confront a simple, profound question. What happens when the future has fewer people than the past? The answer will reshape everything we know. Thanks for watching. If you found this insightful, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below.